CCU Orlando and Akins Counseling Center present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 45, My Southern Roots, Part 2. And now, your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice. I almost said I'm the senior minister and spiritual leader.
It's hard to break the habit, isn't it?
Yes. So my name is Cynthia Alice. I'm the host of the Authentic Spiritual Journey, and we're here in 818 Studios with my very wise producer.
I am Dave Croft. Hello, everybody, and happy Monday. And let me be the first to welcome you to the week.
Yes, welcome to Monday. Happy Monday. And today we are honoring the country of Brazil.
Brazil, yes. Thank you so much for listening to our Brazilian listeners.
Yes. To our Brazilian listeners, I say, Oi, meu nome é Alice, or Cynthia Alice. And we're so glad you're here. Right now, obrigada, obrigada. That's thank you in Portuguese.
Man, Portuguese, that language is so beautiful but baffling because
Yes.
I took so much French. I took 3 years of French,
yes.
and it sounds like French and Spanish.
It is.
Kind of mashed together.
That's exactly what it
Yeah.
is.
And
That's
so-
exactly what it is. And speaking of that, it's really important that we mention Brazil because in the last show I was talking a lot about my grandfather who was a missionary there, and I'll tell you a quick anecdotal story about him, and then Dave's going to do the full poem, Gods of the Blue Ridge. But when my granddad was there, he was walking with a friend in a field, and he tripped over an amethyst stone that was about as big as a milk jug. And the guy goes, hey, would you like that? And so we still have that piece of
Oh, wow.
amethyst. It was just a gift to my grandfather.
Wow.
So that's still a piece that is in my family. So the poem we're going to hear today is starting out, and this is My Southern Roots, Part 2. And we're going to hear the poem. It's in entirety that was written by my grandfather. His name was H.F. Bailey, and it's going to be read by our producer, Dave Croft.
Gods of the Blue Ridge by H.F. Bailey. Almost the gods I caught at play when through the music of the rain I climbed too tall, Enota's brow, heedless of the crashing thunderbolts and mounting gale that swirled the broken branches through a midday gloom. Prophetic of weird secrets guarded well by searing tongues of flame, on either side were gorges that short days before had husbanded the dew. To deck with brightest green, the moss-grown rocks that beckoned in cool peace, but now led foaming torrents that madly sought to leave these virgin wilds, as though themselves affrighted by strange sights and unfamiliar scenes. But sudden, as the trail became less steep, the summit almost gained, the gloom dissolved. A cloud rift burst and flung a shower of gold o'er all the enchanted scene of mountain crest, where full-flushed mountains played. A stage of the gods had set for playing some high drama of their own. Out on the far-flung horizon did my startled eyes behold bright-tinted curtains of azure and lilac and crimson and gold, drawn by aurora at noontime to hide where the gods had fled from adventurous eyes of a mortal whose steps to their stage had led. And then I turned my eyes again to where the well-known mountain masses should be grouped at distant customary, and lo, they too were changed. The gods had used them then, but changed their distances from where I stood. In the western sky, Blood Mountain should be 20 miles and more away, but now so close it nestled that its craggy top showed stark and clear. And in the east, the Tray, its pointed peak, unprayed, so near that I imagined I could shout a message there and get that echo back. And so, on every side was every distance shortened, so the gods had changed the scene for playing some new act on this ethereal stage. Enraptured by the eerie glory that about me stood unrolled, I sought in vain for other answer to the miracle sublime, and knew that not for one poor mortal's eyes had all this stage been set. Now do I doubt more than ever that the gods have gone and left one who must dwell forever in heaven and live by himself alone. Since I climbed the Blue Ridge Mountains and found that I could not pray to just one Father God on the great white throne, for I had found the gods at play.
Thank you so much, Dave. What a beautiful reading. Beautiful, beautiful reading. I love that poem so much. I've heard it my whole life. And, I think I should commit that to memory. That's a real beautiful testament to God's beauty and to the nature of God itself, himself, herself. And I also think for my grandfather, that was a spiritual experience. It was clearly an awakening experience.
And you said he wasn't a unity person per se?
That's right. He was.
Because that is all up in some unity right there.
I know, right? Right. He was, he was a United Methodist minister, but when he met my grandmother, he had a whole nother family, and it was, that's part of the family drama of history. But I will tell you, because this is how families are. There was someone he met and fell in love with, and her name was Lala Gentry, which is my grandmother, and she was waiting tables here in Orlando. And it's a pretty amazing story how she got here. I'll save that for another show, but that's also very interesting. And I found actually the restaurant even where it was, because one of our members grew up in Orlando, and I only had one fact about the restaurant, and that was it. It was that they served squab. Do you know what squab is?
That pigeon?
Pigeon.
Yep.
And so that's where they met. And so my friend said, "Well, there's only one restaurant that serves that, that served that." So that's where my grandparents met. So, and even a few years ago, a great grandchild or something like that of my grandfather's came and found me at church because we had both done the Ancestry.com.
Oh, yeah. The DNA match.
The DNA match. And anyway, it's really amazing connections. But I'm especially glad we're honoring Brazil today because of his connection and because we're mentioning him. And because this is about my Southern roots, part 2, as a teenager, I spent some time in Brazil, and now look back on that time with real different feelings. But I was going to a Christian school, and they really believed in mission work. And there was a saying the school had, which is to know him and to make him known. And I believe that from the highest possible place now. There it was save lost souls. And now I would say just to help people awaken to the God within. But it was a wonderful experience, and my feeling when I landed in Brazil, and I landed in Rio de Janeiro, and my feeling when I landed was that I was home, and I literally kissed the ground. Mm-hmm. It was uncontrollable. I loved, like, the dirt of Brazil. I loved it. And we went there to help a missionary who was, he would take supplies into the interior, so he had a small plane. And so we helped him clean the plane, and we helped him go to the town. And then I was in the interior. So I was in Rio, and I was in Bahia, and I was in an area called Itabaraba, which is in the interior. And, no running water, no, the one street light was out. I've never seen that many potholes in the roads, and I drove there I was driving on the roads as a teenager. So anyway, Brazil, we love you, we bless you, and every Brazilian I met was so full of life, of love, and and so spiritual, innately and deeply spiritual. Even though there's a high rate, certainly, of Catholicism, the spirituality is so much bigger than Catholicism, in terms of the belief and the connection to the earth and the water or spirits. And I mean, so I had a wonderful, wonderful time there, and I'm happy to be honoring Brazil on this podcast today. That's really wonderful. So, my Southern roots, we talked a lot last week and about honoring the past and some homegrown creativity. So, I hope the people that are local will bring up weird stuff you made in the woods. I want somebody to whittle something. Please tell me you did without looking it up. I'm going to never let you forget that, Dave.
I'm that guy. I'm that guy.
Well, it's interesting to me that if I were titling this part of what we're talking about, I would say it's called The Value of True Friendship. And there was something about, I don't know if it was where I grew up, the time, the people itself, the place, and maybe it was all those things. But there were people I grew up with that I knew, and my family knew, would be there in a tough time. And when you have a lot of kids and a lot of family, that's really, really important. And it seems like that growing up, there was this feeling that you needed other people to make it. And now that's not really there. Everybody is, these are gross generalizations.
Yeah, broad strokes.
Broad strokes. But in general, people seem to be, I'll say it that way, people seem to be more isolated. People seem to be less dependent on others. And there's something very valuable in relying on others for support. And so I really learned growing up the value of true friendship. And most of the people I'm speaking of were not kids my age. They were actually grown-ups, elders around me that I could trust. Some were at church. Some lived on my street. Some were friends of my dad's that he would have come over. And one is Mr. Willie, who I've mentioned a few times. And I think he's going to be coming to visit the church maybe in, I've invited him for Memorial Day, and I hope he's going to come because he served not only in the Peace Corps, but in the military. He's in his late 70s, and he still is serving. It's called something like the Georgia Defense Guard or something. Mm. He's always been in service to his country in one way or another. And his daughter is a bigwig who I knew in Washington, D.C. now. His son is incredible. So anyway, I'm hoping Mr. Willie's going to come visit CCU in person with his wife. And he is one of the people that taught me the value of true friendship. So I bet, listeners, that there's somebody in your life who was a true friend. And when I say that, I think you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah, the kind of person you can pick up the phone, or they're in town and you pick up exactly where you left off.
Exactly.
And the time doesn't seem to matter.
Exactly.
Definitely have had some friends in town recently, and it was just like that. We went and got dinner, and sure, we caught up, but it was exactly like I had just seen him last week, and deep history, with him, and some of the inside jokes that maybe just me and Shannon, have been kind of keep holding the torch for 20 years, and now suddenly, Brent's here, and wow, he understands that he's one of us. We can make that inside joke with him, and yeah. Last week I talked a lot about growing up in the military and moving around, and it really wasn't until my dad retired that I was able to start kind of having those deep types of friendships. And really, there's only one, and this was the guy I talked about last week, and we had the discussion about the N-word and all that. It's his name is Saul, and I've known him since 6th grade.
Wow!
And,
yeah, that's amazing.
He comes and visits every 9 months or so, and we hang out and we play video games and we laugh and we pick up right where we left off. But there's something about knowing someone for that long who knows all your stuff, knows your history.
Yep.
You can't pull anything by him. I can't. But even still, I can just text him and say, "Hey, Saul, man, I'm thinking of you. Hope everything's going all right." And he'll say, "Hey, Dave, I just ran into Stan and we got caught up." And it's, we don't have many of those types of friends, and now, and I don't know. It's tougher when you're an adult
Yeah.
because you're kind of limited to work or church, as far as friend encounters.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have school kind of pushing you together for 8 hours a day,
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the people, for whatever reason, I was thinking of have been men that as a child, one was a man at church who always had a joke. He always had a kind word, and he was kind of big and tall, and he had been in World War One,
Wow.
and so he was quite a bit older, when I knew him. But he just had a way with how he spoke to all the kids, certainly. But I thought it was just me. I thought it was really amazing. And there was another man who had this joke about, he always said I owed him a dime, and it was him that owed me the dime. And so every time I saw him, that was a conversation. I mean, through college, he was still saying I owed him a dime every time I saw him. And until he passed away, he swore I owed him that dime. And it was just a funny thing we did together that nobody else would have gotten, because it happened when I was a kid working the concession stand at church. I was selling hot dogs, and he said I shortchanged him a dime. And I said, no, you owe me. So anyway, that was our joke for years and years and years and years. And that was our connection point, and it just stayed. But I know if I ever would have needed something, one phone call and he would have been there.
Yeah.
And so for some reason, it reminds me of a song. It's a song by Rag and Bones Man. Do you know him? Rag and Bones Man is called As You Are. And he's from the UK, actually, but he's a great singer. Some of my favorite songs. Wow, yeah, he's got a lot of great tunes.
Yeah, I'll find it. We'll have a link in our show notes.
Yeah. But to me, that song is about true friendship. And the thing I was thinking, and I have to mention, there was this man up the street, and he had these goats, and I just thought he was the coolest. And because I was a kid, largely unsupervised, I got to know all these people. I knew everybody as if they were like an older sibling or something. I'm sure there were some people going, "Okay, you can go back home now," but I didn't know. And there was something about it, and I was relating it to my current situation today, and then there seemed to be this acceptance of that there were always going to be differences, but you learn to get along. And now there seems to be this idea of if you don't believe what I believe, I'm unfriending you and I'm not talking to you. And I know some relationships have gotten really toxic, so I'm not saying you hold on to toxic relationships, but I'm saying there's not an understanding of how to be in relationships and friendships that, sometimes the people we love do things we don't like. Does that mean we leave? Right? Sometimes, like our friend said a few weeks ago, Martha Creek, when she was here, sometimes I don't like me. I'm sure sometimes my spouse doesn't like me, So, but there seemed to be this energy of, oh yeah, you believe that? Interesting. So a friend was somebody who brought a different perspective and made you better because of it, not that you shut out because they were different. And there seems to be now this requirement of adherence, especially in the political world, that if you don't agree with every word I say, I cannot be in the same, room, the same Facebook, the same, whatever. So I'm just lifting that up for us to be thinking about, because really, to have a friend, we got to be a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. And be willing to hear opposing viewpoints without shutting the person out of your life. And that's, again, with the caveat that, toxic people, you should definitely excise them. But,
yeah.
But especially if it's family, you have family beef, and yeah. I just, a few weeks ago, my sister's husband, his mom passed away, like tragically. She had gone in for like leg surgery and threw a clot.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That is so hard.
61 years old. And of course, my mom's gone.
61?
61.
That's unbelievable. Gosh.
My mom's gone. My dad's gone.
Right.
And now his mom is gone. So
right.
He was an only child. And my sister's kids, like they have a grandfather left, and that's it. Like, and they're they're in their 20 and 17 and 14, I think, the age of her kids. And yeah, just getting caught up with my sister. We must have talked on the phone for like an hour and a half.
Oh, that's special.
And
Yeah.
it's not like we were the two that kind of clumped together, while my other sisters kind of raised hell.
Did their thing. Yeah.
Right. We were like, we're just keeping our heads down and just biding our time until we can get out
Let's
of
hope
this.
they don't get us in trouble.
Right,
Right.
exactly. But it was really good. It's really good. And I invited, her son is a drummer.
Oh, cool.
And he's into comic books and Marvel
yeah.
movies and all video games and stuff. So I said, yeah, well, have him come on down. We'll spend a week with Uncle Dave, and we'll just have fun. And I'm sure you could use a break, But yeah, it was really good getting caught up with her. And every time something like that happens and we connect, I always I want more of this. I want more of this in my life.
Yes.
And I realize that is, it's on me. It's my responsibility. I can't just wait for either, family tragedy or,
Right.
They need something.
Right.
They're coming to Orlando, so I guess I'll swing in. And like the last time I really talked to my oldest sister was the last time she was in Orlando. And we had a great time. We went and, had pizza at Disney Springs. It was great. But since then, there's been no real contact. But that's on me, and I want that to be better.
Yeah. Well, you're a good uncle. I know, because I've seen you kind of be like big brother to other kids, and you are to my son. He really looks up to you, and that's what we're talking about, friends. Really, just being a friend, and especially right now. I know I've said this a lot. I feel like at church that our kids really need grown-ups they can trust, grown-ups that they can go to for support, because with all they're getting hit with at school and in society, it's really easy for them to feel bad about themselves. And there were some things in my childhood that were tough, but bottom line is I knew I had people and neighbors who loved me and who were there for me.
Yeah, and I was talking to my sister a few weeks ago about that very same kind of thing, and realizing that kids hitting college or hitting high school right now have never known a world without social media.
Right.
Like Facebook is, and Twitter and social media and Instagram, that is as normal to them as electricity is. It's just is.
Yes.
It's just the way it is. It's just another utility.
Right.
And so just the impact that has on development and relationships and stuff.
Yes, and I want to get to that as soon as we get back. We'll pick back up a little bit about true friendship, and then we've got a couple other really important things the last half of the show. So again, thank you for joining us, friends. We'll be right back.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. CCU Orlando is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. Christ Church Unity is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We'd also like to extend our thanks to our podcast partner, Akins Counseling Center. Cassandra Akins is a licensed mental health counselor dedicated to creating sacred space where clients can explore their own inner process in a safe, non-judgmental, and supportive environment. She works with individuals, couples, and groups who are seeking to live a more authentic life. Akins Counseling Center is located in Winter Park, Florida, and can be found on the web at CassandraAkins.com. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey.
Welcome back, friends. Yeah, this is My Southern Roots.
Part two.
I was thinking about that. What's her name? Is it Alice Merton? I got no roots, but my home. Anyway, and at the break, Dave said, do we need to change the title?
Like, we're talking about friends.
We're talking about friends. And I said, yeah. So maybe I haven't said this out loud, but what I was intending is that I learned the value of true friendship growing up by the adults around me who were cool adults, that they honored me as a person, and then they also taught me things. Kids now, how many kids have the privilege of just hanging out with adult and watching them, feed their animals or shear their sheep or take a horseshoe off a horse
Or work on a car.
or work on a car or put together a model airplane or fix a tool and make it into something else. Just hanging out with grown-ups. So anyway, that was what I was intending. That may not have been super clear,
No,
but so, and I think if there's anything I want to say, and I'm really trying to just bring you with me in my journey these last couple shows, because if there was any lesson, it would be, to have a friend, we have to be a friend, and to know that we have enough to give, that we're needed. It's almost like sometimes I think we don't think we have enough to give, so we don't, but then we really rob other people of knowing us and knowing something that we have to give. So
yeah, I think there's always room in your solar system for another planet.
yep,
Right?
me too.
Like I think in my world, it's like me and Shannon are like we're the sun in our relation. We're like binary stars,
You guys are real connected,
and then we have like Larry and Judy because they live with us and everything. But we don't have a lot of other people who aren't work or church or related.
Right.
Just social people who necessarily orbit.
Right.
Not that that feels like we're the center of the universe, but in our own little worlds, we are. We're the gravitational pull in our own kind of solar system.
Yes, and you also have family and stuff though right here that you're working a lot with and have a lot of responsibilities. So it makes sense. The two other things that really came up for me. First of all, I have to share this image with you. My granddad is like tapping me on the shoulder in consciousness, because one of the cool things I got to experience growing up, because I mentioned in the last show that I grew up on the same land that my mom did. And my grandfather was a big gardener. He planted all kinds of beautiful things, and they lived off, what he planted. But there was this path he walked in the woods, and along that path he planted dogwood trees. And so if I would look from my big rock where I would kind of pray and meditate and talk to God and listen to the sounds and the animals and everything, I could see the white, when they were in bloom,
Yep.
I could see the white of the dogwood trailing up the mountain.
Wow.
It wasn't a mountain, it was a hill.
Right.
But I could see that. And also next to that, which is super cool, was this cave. We might save that for another show, but interesting story about the cave too.
Wow.
But that was really a cool, because I never knew that grandfather, but he had left something of value for me to see. He left a home. He left this path in the woods, and that was something that I always felt a connection with. And then when I found myself in Orlando and realized he had been a minister here, it was not in my consciousness necessarily. Anyway, it was a profound connection with him and with his spirit. And then, the other couple of things that really have been in my mind about growing up in the South is cooking and community. I'm telling you, you go to somebody's house and it's dinner time, they say, honey, go in the kitchen and get you a plate. And sit down.
You've been here more than 3 times to get your own plate.
That's it. Oh, totally. Sometimes it's the first time. And all the sayings around food. Honey, I love you so much. I could eat you with a spoon and sop you up with a biscuit.
Sop you up with a biscuit.
So my partner and I have a funny routine we do. Too bad she's not here today. But and again, there's something about creating food. It's like your spirit is in the food.
Yeah.
And I've been cooking a lot lately, and it's interesting how I will feel sometimes my ancestors helping me, or I'm really using my intuition because, I'm gluten-free, and so half the stuff I make, I'm like remaking in my mind. And I've been growing a lot of herbs, so I have I just made last night this pizza, and I made gluten-free dough, and then I made fresh pesto with fresh basil from my garden. And oh my goodness, no restaurant could have touched that pizza. Fresh rosemary from my garden, fresh oregano from my garden. So I just felt so prosperous, and making this yummy pizza and providing it for my partner. I just felt so good, but it was because my soul was engaged with what I was doing. It's a lot of us, myself included, probably eat at restaurants a little too much because we're on the run and it's quick and easy. But you know what I've discovered? Sometimes it's actually not quick and easy. Oftentimes I can make something at home faster, but there's cleanup and there's all of that. So I get all that. But I have really been enjoying all that cooking, and growing up in a large family. All of our cooking was our connection in the kitchen, and then people were very attracted to that. So we were always adding plates at our dinner table.
Yeah, I talked about the culture shock of accents and
Yes.
that kind of thing, but the culture shock of going to a single family to like the family reunion or Christmas.
Yes.
And Christmas is plural and multiple grandparents on the same Christmas day. Wow, I was not prepared for the amount of food. And now that I say that out loud, I was a skinny kid in California. I was in Little League and all of that. And I always chalked it up to, I started gaining weight when we moved to North Carolina. I always chalked it up because on a military base, they have all these sports programs.
Right.
Didn't really exist, in
Right.
like unless you went to school. There was no Little League or whatever that we could join that I knew of or whatever. But now that I think it out loud, I wonder if it's all of the family reunion cooking. But there was always food. There was always food, and I know that my parents leaned into that.
There's biscuits. There's cornbread.
Oh my gosh, and chicken
Gravy,
and dumplings.
Chicken and dumplings. Don't say that.
RC cola and moon pie.
Oh, man.
As cliche as that is, absolutely in the house at all times. RC cola.
Well,
and
we had
moon pies.
what did we have? We had our big treat was a Heath bar and a Coca-Cola.
Heath bar. You must have been rich.
Yeah. Well, we only got it like once a week.
Yeah, we had bag cereal. The fake Rice Krispies that was put in the Tupperware container.
That's good too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was always food around, and it was good old Southern cooking. And then when me and Shannon started dating, we started going to her grandparents, and one of her grandmothers used to work at a diner, and so it was full on. We on Christmas Day, one year we had 4 Christmas dinners.
Whoa.
And each one had the full turkey, stuffing, pecan pies.
I believe it.
Each one, 4 times.
I believe it. And they'd say, come on in, get you some more, honey.
I ate all of it because I ain't no quitter. Mama didn't raise no quitter.
Whatever you say, ma'am.
But yeah, and I have really fond memories of family reunion. The food, my grandmother always made homemade ice cream.
Oh yeah,
in the
nothing
little
like that.
the thing that would just
the
churn.
thing that you churn. I love that thing.
Yep. But because we didn't know the family, we didn't grow up with them. It was just the California kids and all the Southern kids. Really, kind of the Crofts all kept to themselves, and the Lanes they all knew each other.
Yeah, but that's special, right? All the food. I mean, it's like food equals family in the South. And for us too, coffee. And I think largely because how we started drinking, I mean, here's the Brazil theme again. How we started drinking really strong coffee was because his time in Brazil. And so, we would drink coffee so strong, that it was thick, and we'd drop a horseshoe in it. And if the horseshoe stood up, we'd say, it's ready. Pretty
French press business.
You and your French press. Right. But so if you haven't made a meal lately, friends, and I know you don't need me to say this, you're with us, and actually probably everybody, the soft drink sales are going to go through the roof for people that listen to this, because right now,
Cheerwine.
I can't tell you how much I want a Coke. We had this special ginger ale too that we drank. It was called Red Rock Ginger Ale. Did you ever have those?
No, I don't remember seeing that.
I think it was a Georgia thing, but it was like, if you did not feel good, it was Red Rock ginger ale was like the special ingredient that would just help your whole system, So anyway, and then the feeling of community, and the feeling of community for me was directly related to church.
Oh, potlucks in the fellowship hall.
You got it.
Potluck. Everybody brought broccoli and rice casserole, and everybody brought. There were more chicken pot pies than you could shake a stick at. So much bread. Somebody always brought spaghetti, and then there was always one person who would bring
I know what you're
Like-
going to say. Weird Jello stuff.
Well, yes, that.
Oh.
But they're like Taco Bell seems to like somebody would just bring like fast food.
Totally.
And they were the rock star heroes of
For the kids.
Yes. Like, oh my, this is Taco Bell. We can have Taco Bell at the fellowship hall. But yeah, absolutely. And tea, sweet tea, just
Sweet tea.
all sweet
Sweet
tea.
tea.
If you didn't want sweet tea, you had water.
That's right. What's wrong with you, son?
Yep.
Yeah, and part of the community too, part of the community aspect for me was really honoring our elders. We were really taught to honor our elders, and you were good to the older folks. As a matter of fact, every single Sunday, when we got there, and there was Sunday school at 9, and then the service was at 11. But when we got there, I would go into my grandmother's class. I'll never forget. It was called like the Joy Tim's class. And I would go in and I would hug every single member of that Sunday school class before I could go up to my class. It was like, go in and hug everybody, right? And so I was so connected to all of them. They were like all my other parents, my aunts and my uncles. It was right there. And for us today, again, parents, please get your kids in spiritual community. Get your kids in spiritual community. They need it so badly. And there's things they will get there that will not get anywhere else. They'll get another adult that loves them. They'll get an adult that lifts them up. And certainly at our church, boy, they will learn their divine nature. They will learn skills for calming down to meditate. They will learn how to stand up to bullies. They will learn how to take care of themselves and the people they love. Man, that is community.
One of the things I love that CCU does is, it's not originally blessed, not originally cursed.
Yeah, that we're originally blessed, not originally cursed.
That's huge. Because as a kid, you grow up and you're like, you have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And that's tough for a little 9-year-old brain to kind of get their, to wrap their head around. And I feel really bad. And the blood of Jesus and nails and death and cry. And that's a heavy ask for a kid.
Yes, it is.
But I love that CCU. You're blessed. You're not cursed.
Yes.
Right? You're blessed. God already loves you. You don't have to earn it. And there's nothing you can do that will make him stop loving you.
Well, and the idea, friends, of original sin is not a teaching in Judaism. Jesus was a Jew, and it is not it is a fabrication of the church. I mean, it was Saint Augustine who came up with the whole idea of original sin, and Jesus did not speak of original sin. It was not a belief system in his time. So that should give us all like it's like I can see somebody now driving down the road going, what? There's not, original sin is not a thing. Look it up, friends. That's something you can Google if you want. If you want to know, just there's plenty of history at the touch of a button.
Yeah, that was huge. That was huge for me.
It is huge. It is huge, and it's so often with our kids. Sometimes we're teaching, and they're like, "Yeah, we get it. God loves us. God's within us. God's all around us. Let's go play." It's like They don't have to unlearn anything.
So obvious. Yeah,
it's so obvious. They're like, "Hello, we see God out there. We see God here. All good."
Yeah.
All
Can we
good.
get in the bouncy castle now?
Yeah. Now can we go to the bounce house? Let's go have some fun. So, but I really want to encourage you, if you're an aunt, if you're an uncle, if you're, in other words, if you're not a parent, but you have children in your life, to find a way to get a spiritual community, but a good one that really, really supports them. There's all kinds of spiritual communities out there, but you really want to choose well to make sure that the lessons they're getting are really empowering them to live better lives and empowering their own soul and their own God nature, because some churches are actually doing more harm than good. They're providing community, but then they're saying you're evil, you're bad, and you're sinful. Well, everybody's made mistakes, and the word sin literally means missing the mark. It's an archery term. Well, everybody can say yes, but to be telling that to an 8, 9-year-old kid, they don't even get what that means. And they feel bad for existing. And, so if you are choosing community, friends, choose carefully. Choose carefully. And I'm so sad to see what's happened in the United Methodist Church over the LGBTQ issues. because my experience as a child was one of acceptance for who I was. And
In the Methodist Church?
yes. I mean, my mom outed me. I think I was in college, and my mom was a lay minister, or is rather a lay minister. She's 91 now, but when she was involved in the church, she was a lay minister, and she spoke specifically because there were 9 siblings, 7 of us survived, and myself, and one of my siblings, a brother, is also gay, and so my mom spoke about us from the pulpit, and saying, these are kids, that were raised in this church. You all love them, and now you're saying you don't accept gay people. I mean, she just did what every parent would want. I was like, Mom did what? I was like astonished that
I mean, were you in?
No, I
Okay.
wasn't even there. I was in college, so somebody had to tell me about
Right.
it. And that particular church, again, growing up, I was, very loved and supported. But then when I started to, when I was feeling the call to ministry, I was first going to be in the Methodist Church, and at a session, a Q&A with ministers, I asked the gay question, and, you could have heard a pin drop. I thought, well, I've got to ask. Well, you can be gay, they said. You just can't act on it or
can't
talk
practice
about
it,
it.
right.
I was like, I burst out laughing. I said, okay, well, I guess this is not for me. And it's going to be the issue that splits the United Methodist Church.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
As it has many others, and a lot of churches have taken a nosedive in attendance. With this last position on marriage for LGBTQ. That they will not marry, and it's amazing that the Mormon Church, I heard, is just approved rather, to baptize babies of same-sex couples. And I never thought I would see the day where I felt like the Mormon Church was ahead of the Methodist Church.
They're coming down on the progressive side.
That is scary. Although every Mormon I've ever known has just been a kind-hearted person. As a denomination, they historically have been very damaging to LGBTQ. And as a matter of fact, the suicide rate in Utah is the highest in the country.
Oh, wow.
And many believe that's because of the Mormon Church. So there's a lot further to go, but that's a pretty amazing
They're
thing.
moving the needle at least some.
Yeah, so I'm saying all this to say that spiritual community is super, super important, and choosing well, parents, take the time, do the research to make sure that the place you might be taking your family or your nieces and nephews, whether they're your own kids or not, that it's a place that they're really going to hear an empowering message. And hey, if not, get some popcorn, turn on the computer, and watch us online.
Or your phone or iPad or
Your phone
tablet,
or iPad.
whatever.
That's right. And watch us online, because you can watch it from your living room. I had a friend text me the other day a picture of their computer. They're in the Bahamas. They're living on their boat, and they watched us from the Bahamas. So it can be done. We have the technology, but we want you to be in a spiritual community as much as you can, even if you're connecting with us online, not only because there's support you will receive, but support you can give. Mm-hmm. And we're always looking for ways that in my ministry, in this show, which is an aspect of my ministry, that we consistently look for ways to be a blessing to the world. And of course, we want to be blessed, but we know it always comes back to us. So I'm so grateful you listened for these last couple of weeks, where I was a trip down memory lane, but I'm still in it. I'm still in my process of my Southern roots. And even so much as I've been cutting out images and placing them in my journal, that are comforting to me as images up from where I've come from. So I hope, friends, that you'll remember that we love you, we bless you, and that to have a friend, you must first be a friend. And so there is great, great value in true friendship. And I encourage you to look back on your life, see if there's those people who've been there. Boy, it'd be great if you could still thank them. And if not, you can thank them by paying it forward, by being that friend, to another. And then make something beautiful in the kitchen. Cook and invite friends over. Have some community. And don't watch TV, don't watch movies, talk, light a candle, hang out outside, spend some time together, and then get yourself in spiritual community if you can. And if not, create one right in your very own home.
That's right. That's right.
So we, as always, we thank you for joining us. We appreciate the support, and some people are supporting us even with as little as $2 a month. And you know what? That's a lot, and we appreciate it very, very much. And we bless you on the journey, especially saying hi to our friends in Brazil. We say "oi," and now we say, what do you say when you're leaving? All I can think of is Japanese right now. Japanese or Spanish is all I'm thinking right now. Yeah. So, ciao. You say ciao.
Yeah.
Ciao, friends, and thank you for joining us.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey presented by CCU Orlando and Akins Counseling Center here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Angela Martinez, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, and JJ Hamilton, along with our partner patrons CCU Orlando and Akins Counseling Center. If you would like to help be a part of bringing shows like this and other programs to the channel, please consider becoming a patron. You can learn more about supporting the channel, along with show notes and information about our other programs at experienceofthesoul.com. And if you enjoyed this podcast, you can help spread the word by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or the platform of your choice. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.